Bill Henshaw here again, Constitutional Coop headquarters, and some very recent events many of you may not be aware of, is that it appears like the nine old farts, aka the U.S. Supreme Court, may have overturned Roe v. Wade. Remains to be seen. They issued a quote-unquote emergency order out of a case from the state of Texas that appears like it might have that effect. But it looks like this is going to be set for a hearing in the upcoming term, and we'll see how it develops. The question from my perspective is, who the hell cares? I mean, Roe v. Wade didn't decide a damn thing. It hasn't been good law in the 50 years it's been around, and instinctively you have to understand that we have, or there is, I should say, the right to an abortion, and there has to be. It's not a civil right under the non-existent 14th War Amendment. Ain't. What you do is you go there to the court and bring questions like this under, for example, the 9th article of amendment, where we reserve rights to ourselves, especially the members of the sovereign body politic of the nation and republic, which, if you don't know, are free, white, male, and 21. Get used to it. That's the way it is and the way it should be again, unless or until the Constitution is amended in conformance with that document, not in contravention of it. Article 1, Section 10 is another due too. No state shall pass any law that impairs obligations to contracts. Another hell of a good case that they should have brought up 50 years ago in the original Roe v. Wade. And we get different answers to those questions. So that said, this is the kind of distinctions you want to make in your own cases rather than relying on civil rights when that 14th Amendment not only doesn't exist, it hasn't existed from day one. The Supreme Court contemporaneously ruled it unconstitutional, but were not allowed to announce their opinion. In any event, this is a war act of Congress, no question about it. And that's always been the sticking point for us south of the Mason-Dixon line. And I grew up in that way myself, spent a lot of time in Virginia in the shadow of Jeffersonian republicanism back in an age where people actually lived like that, like it was supposed to be. The 1950s and 60s, and I made a visit to Harper's Ferry in the 1960s, and it probably wasn't a hell of a lot different than it was in the 1860s when John Brown was there doing his infamous raid. And by the way, things moved along quicker in that era. If you don't know, that occurred in October of 1859. And by December of 1859, John Brown was out of there. Capital punishment. He didn't stay on death row 12 or 15 years or whatever. But that said, the abortion, unless, the equation is going to be seriously changed by this non-existent COVID pandemic, I don't see how they can get around it if you make the right issues, the right status, and in the right court. And I'll be interested to see what the conservatives say if they do, in effect, overturn that. Whether any of this is mentioned in there or not, don't know yet. They ought to have the decency to do that if that's what they're set out to do. But then, my gosh, and I made this decision long ago in my own personal life, and especially today, why would members of you younger generations out there want to have kids in any event? What's the point? With all the automation, computerization, this, that, and the other, where are the jobs going to be, among other things? And unless we get the situation reversed with the federal, regional, martial law rule, why would you want to bring up a kid who's going to live his entire life under that jurisdiction and never have a clue what freedom really is? I mean, my goodness, it was almost a no-brainer for me. And I'm the last of the family here, the last of the line, with no issue. I'm sure they'll be glad to hear that in Washington, D.C. But it made sense because, and even earlier on, instinctively I knew. But when I started on my quest with the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1983, I soon enough realized the magnitude of the work I was engaging in was such that a family couldn't come first. And I said, well, if they can't come first, why do I want to have one? That's correct thinking. More so even today with everything in the intervening 40 years. My goodness. And to be sure, I think there are, although I have a lot of problems with government and birth control and this, that, and the other, but I do think there's probably 3.5 billion or so too many people here, on planet Earth, particularly in China, India, Indonesia, way overpopulated, and it needs to change. And if we had the government we're supposed to have and did it in accordance with the Constitution, there'd be no problem with that. It is what it is. So we'll see. Now, the interesting debate behind the scenes with the New York bankers, though, is that they need a lot of births because what they do is monetize your birth certificate and use that against you the rest of your life, especially when you apply for social insecurity benefits. So, see, the Fed says on the record, Manor S. Eccles in 1941 House Subcommittee Banking and Finance, that the Fed can create money out of debt, and without debt, there would be no money. Now, without new births, I don't see how they create the debt. That's a real problem. We'll be talking about a lot more on other videos. But that said, I personally don't see any long-term problem with whatever happens with this current case from the U.S. Supreme Court. Is just very marginal details right now, but I'll get them to you when I learn them myself. But I wouldn't lose any sleep over it. I mean, they simply can't tell you if you don't want to have a family. I mean, my God, whose kids are these going to be? What authority do they have over your own personal body? I'd love to see it. Now, the short answer to that question is they think, well, for all our what I call birthright citizenship to the non-existent 14th War Amendment, and they have the power to take care of us from cradle to grave, then yeah, if they own us, then maybe they have that kind of power. But this can only be true if, in fact, we're slaves. And that's what the 14th Amendment did. It continued that relationship. Not only did it do that, it made us all equal by relegating state citizens to that status or a status of statelessness. And that's why they think they own us. And the sooner we get these cases before the courts, especially the 9/0 parts, and the better off we're going to be. And we do it all together. Americans, Asians, Africans get on the right page, the right issues, the right court. It's going to work out a hell of a lot better than wasting time with the non-existent 14th Amendment and civil rights. Are you listening, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton? Not worth a damn. This is what has to stop. This is increased military power. It's all it was ever designed to be, to get the government completely taken over in Washington, D.C. by the New York banksters. The sooner you get that perspective, the sooner you get down the road to learning what your rights really are and doing something about it, not to mention teaching your kids and your posterity so they can take the same journey, which they're not going to get in the mandatory public education system. So that said, and you can learn more about it, send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. I'll send you information on my modestly priced document package. You can take it from there and what you'll learn about. And by the way, you get a lot of backup from me with that. You get my documents. You get a lot of complimentary phone consultations, complimentary email replies, which are better in some ways because you get written, replies you can refer back to, and even a complimentary Zoom appearance at a contested hearing. I would love to do all of it. So I'm going to have your back, which is more than you can say for the damn state bar association attorneys who couldn't care less. All they want to do, it used to be serve and protect. Now, I had a recent friend suggest to me that the motto should be serve and collect. That's all they're in, is the money business. And the sooner we get them out of it, the better off we're going to be. That said, remember to subscribe, like my videos, tell your friends, get the word out, and email me at youwinnincourt@gmail.com. I'll send you information about what I'm doing, and we can go from there. That said, I'll see you next time. Thank you.